Hello everyone, welcome back to Inputix. And in this video, we will go through Cambridge 16, test 4, passage 1. So the passage is about Roman tunnels, and as usual, we will read the paragraph first, and then we will move to the questions. Okay, let's get started. The passage is about Roman tunnels. The Romans, who once controlled areas of Europe, North Africa, and Asia Minor, adopted the construction techniques of other civilizations to build tunnels in their territories. Okay. The Persians, who lived in present-day Iran, were one of the first civilizations to build tunnels that provided a reliable supply of water to human settlements in dry areas. In the early first millennium BCE, they introduced the Kanat method of tunnel construction, which consisted of placing posts, yeah, over a hill, post yani, uh, stalba degan, okay? Over a hill in straight line. Ketma-ket sablan qo'yib tushgan ekan. To ensure that the canal kept its road. To'g'ri ketganligini ushlab turish uchun. And then digging vertical shafts down into the ground at regular intervals. And the ground, workers removed the earth from between the ends of the shafts, creating a tunnel. The excavated soil was taken up to the surface using shafts, which also provided ventilation during the work. Once the tunnel was completed, it allowed water to flow it allowed the water to flow from the top of a hillside down towards the canal, which supplied water for human use. Remarkably, some canals built by the Persians 2,700 years ago are still in use today. Okay, basically it's giving a general description of, what happened in the past with this, canal, with this tunnel thing. And they were talking about how it was used and all of this. Now let's look at the question. Something, how many words do we have to use? One word only. Okay. So it's saying something to direct the tunneling. Okay, as we can see from the picture, they're like posts, yeah, the one that we read, stalba. Rasmga ko'rsatib o'zi. Nimalardan foydalanilgan? Shu tunnelingni to'g'ri direct turish uchun. Mana demakki bizda in the early first millennium, they introduced the Kanat method of tunnel construction, which consisted of placing posts over a hill in a straight line. The answer for the first question is going to be posts. Okay, I'm going to have to stick to this one. Next one. Water runs into something used by local people. To ensure, okay, and the ground workers removed the earth from between the ends of the shaft, creating a tunnel. The excavated soil was taken up to the surface using shaft, which also provided ventilation during the work. Once tunnel was completed, it allowed water, and to flow from the top of a hillside down towards the canal, which supplied water for human use. Water runs into a canal used by local people, supplied water for human use. That's it. Now for the answer question 3. Vertical shafts to remove earth. That was the thing about removing earth. Yes, workers removed the earth from the between both ends of the shaft, creating a tunnel. And for something, the excavated soil was taken up to the surface using shafts, which also provide ventilation during the work. You can also see from the picture that it's kind of a ventilation. Water is coming from here, and then they're going through there. Okay, and the question 4. Do we have an answer with the question 4? Not yet. Let's continue. They later passed on their knowledge to the Romans. Romalar o'rgatishibdi. Also used Kanat method to construct water supply tunnels for agriculture. Roma canal tunnels were constructed with vertical shafts dug at intervals between 30 and 60 meters. The shafts were equipped with handholds and footholds to help those climbing in and out of them, and were covered with a wooden or stone lid. To ensure that shafts were vertical, Romans hung a plumb line from a rod placed across the top of each other. Each shaft, they made sure that the weight at the end of it hung in the center of the shaft. Plumb lines were also used to measure the depth of the shaft and to determine the slope of the tunnel. The 5.6 kilometer long Clarice Tunnel, built in 41 CE to drain the Fusion Lake in central Italy, had shafts that were up to 122 meters deep. Took 11 years to build and involved approximately 30,000 workers. That's insane. Okay, answer for the question four. Something made of wood and stone. That was from here. Yeah, were covered with a wooden or stone lid. Yeah, lid made of stone. That's the thing that you're watching is this lid. Okay. Kapkakmas. Yeah, kapkak if I'm mistaken. Yes, in Uzbek. Okay. The answer for the question five. Something was attached to the plumb line. Uh, we read it here, if I'm not mistaken, to ensure that the shafts were vertical. Roman hung a plumb line from a pot placed across top each other and made sure that the weight at the end of it hung. You see? Like the picture clearly illustrates what is, hung there. So the answer of the question five is going to be weight, and the answer for the question six, something. Handholds and footholds used for something. You read it here. Okay, the shafts were equipped with handholds and footholds to help those climbing in and out of them, and covered with wooden or stone lids. Used for, that should be climbing, yeah? So we are done with the questions from 1 to 6. Now let's go to the true, false, not given questions and deal with them. Okay. By the 6th century BCE, a second method of tunnel construction appeared called the contour excavation method, in which the tunnel was constructed from both ends. It was used to cut through high mountains when the canot method was not a practical alternative. Bu method tog'larni yorib o'tish ishlatilgan ekan, qachonki o'sha qanot metodi unaqa foyda keladigan muqobil variant bo'lmagan, alternativa bo'lmagan deyapti bizga. This method required greater planning and advanced knowledge of surveying, mathematics, and geometry, as both ends of the tunnel had to meet correctly at the center of the mountain. Ana tog'i bir boshidan ikkinchi o'sha boshigacha, bir yog'idan ikkinchi yog'igacha ikkalasi ham tekis meet qilishi kerak. O'shaning uchun unga surveying, mathematics, and geometry kerak bo'lgan ekan. Adjustment to the direction of the tunnel also had to be made whenever builders encountered geological problems or when it deviated from its set path. They constantly checked the tunnel's advancing direction, for example, by looking back at the light and that penetrated through the tunnel mouth, and made corrections whenever necessary. Large deviations that could happen, and they could result in one end of the tunnel not being usable. An inscription written on the side of a 428-meter tunnel, inscription degani yozib ketilgan devorga, built by the Romans as part of their Selde aqueduct system in modern-day Algeria, describes how the two teams builders missed each other, yo'qotib qolgan bir-birini, in the mountain, and how the later construction of a lateral link between both corridors corrected the initial error. Okay, the contour excavation method completely replaced the canot method in the 6th century. It's saying completely replaced. No, it did not completely replace. Uh, it was, look at it here. It was used to cut through high mountains when the canot method was not a practical alternative. Uni yo'qolmagan, просто uni o'rniga foydalanib turilgan. U yaxshi alternativ bo'lmagan chunki. Canot method o'sha vaqtda. Completely emas. U просто o'sha construction uchun foydalanilgan ikkita tog'i kesish uchun, tog' o'rtasidan tunnel chiqarish uchun, o'shaning uchun. Only experienced builders were employed to construct a tunnel using the contour excavation method. It was from here, yeah. What was it? Like they were talking about people. Yeah, this method required greater planning, advanced knowledge of surveying, mathematics, and geometry. Bu knowledge-da bizda experience builder haqida aytyapti. I don't think that the answer is given. It's not given. Chunki aytmayapti bizda contour excavation methoddan foydalanish uchun shu knowledge kerak deyapti. Experience builder emas. Mean experience bo'lsa ham knowledge bo'lmasa, like it doesn't make sense. The information about a problem that occurred during the construction of the Silday aqueduct system was found in an ancient book. Easy, that's false. It was found in the inscription written on the side of this tunnel. Last one. The mistake made by the builders of the Silday aqueduct system was that the two parts of the tunnel failed to meet. So it's coming from here, describes how the two teams of builders missed each other in the mountain and how later construction of a lateral link between both corridors corrected the initial error. Bir-birini topolmagan, o'sha failed to meet bo'lgan. Javob bizda unga true bo'ldi. Okay, we're done with this question type. Now let's move on to short answer questions. The Romans dug tunnels for their roads using counter-excavation method whenever they encountered obstacles such as hills or mountains that were too high for roads to pass over. An example is the 37-meter long, 6-meter high Forel Pass tunnel built in Italy in this year. Remarkably, a modern road still uses this tunnel today. Tunnels were also built for mineral extraction. Miners would locate a mineral vein and then pursue it with shafts and tunnels underground. Traces of such tunnels used to mine gold. O'sha chemicallar hammasi oltinni chiqarishga foydalangan ekan. And can still be found at this place at these mines, yeah, in Wales. When sole purpose of a tunnel was mineral extraction, construction required less planning, as the tunnel road was determined by the mineral vein. What type of mineral were the Dolakathy mines in Wales built to extract? ولا alternatives hozir. Trace of such tunnels used to mine gold. Gold. The answer is gold. Next one. In addition to the patron whose name might be carved onto the tunnel, I don't think we read about this one. Maybe in this paragraph. Roman tunnel projects were carefully planned and carried out. The length of time it took to construct the tunnel depended on the method being used and the types of rocks being excavated. The canal construction method was usually faster than the counter excavation method, as it was more straightforward. Oson bo'lgani uchun tezroq bo'lgan ekan. This was because the mountain could be excavated not only from the tunnel mouth but also from the shafts. The type of rock could also influence construction types. When the rock was hard, the Romans employed a technique called fire quenching, which consisted of heating the rock with fire, and then suddenly cooling it with cold water so that it would crack. Beautiful, yeah. Progress through hard rock could be very slow, and it was not uncommon for tunnels to take years. And if not decades, we will look at this beautiful language here. Progress through hard rock could be very slow. Hard rock bo'lgani juda ham qiyin bo'lar ekan. And it was not uncommon. Bu odatiy emas edi. Ularga yillar ketaverardi degan gap aytyapti bu yerda. If not decades, 10 yillab ketmasa deyapti. Construction marks left on a Roman tunnel in Bologna show that the rate of advance through solid rock was 30 centimeters per day. In contrast, the rate of advance of the Clarice tunnel can be calculated at 1.4 meters per day. Most tunnels had inscriptions showing the names of patrons for the construction and sometimes the names of the architect. For example, 1.4 kilometer Sivlik tunnel in Turkey built to divert the flood water, threatening the harbor. Harbor degani kemalar kelib to'xtaydigan joy boru, o'sha. Had inscriptions on the entrance still visible today. That also indicated that the tunnel was started in this year and was completed in this year. Okay. In addition to the patron, whose name might be carved into tunnel, that was architect. And what part of Celia, Peru was something was tunnel built to protect? It was built to divert flood water, threatening the harbor. Harborni problem olib kelayotgan, uni xavfga qo'yayotgan flood waterdan himoya qilishni qurilgan ekan. Okay, we are done with this passage one. That was a pretty good passage. There were some tricky questions as well. So thank you for watching. Also, guys, once you have done the passage, once you have done the question, make sure you make this word table. Yeah, like we used to do. The first question, yeah, what was our first question? To direct the tunneling. The question, something to direct the tunneling. We got the answer from here. What was it? Yes. You understand much better, and then in the next time you do IELTS passages again, you'll be much more careful to direct tunneling and something, yeah, which consisted of placing posts over a hill straight line to ensure that the tunnel kept its road. Mana bizda tegi qilib qo'yamiz. Xuddi o'shanasi bizga ham paraphrase bo'lyapti. Qanaqa qilib paraphrase qilayotganini ko'radigan bo'lsanglar, qanaqa qilib the language is used here, you'll be much more careful next time. Meni bittasini qilib qo'yaylik. Ikkinchisi, water runs into, okay, water runs into nimadir adashmasam, into a nimadir used by local people. Hop, questionni bizda shunaqa yozilgan. Hop, bu yoqqa kelganda bizda aytdi, there once a tunnel was completed, it allowed water to from the top of a hillside down towards a canal, which supplied water for human use. Ketdi mana. Mana which supplied water for human use degani mana. Water used by local people. And down towards the canal degani mana runs into. Okay. Hammasi o'sha paraphrase qilib berib qo'yilgan. Просто sizlar topib olishingiz kerak qayerdan qanaqa qilib paraphrase bo'layotganini. And then your work will be much easier. Mana true false not given questionlarda ham zo'r berdi bizga masalan. Mana shuni qilib qo'ydik. 7-chi question biz. The counter excavation method completely replaced. Yo, completely replaced qilmadi uni. Просто u yaxshiroq alternativ edi. O'sha vaqtga qaraganda. Passageda bizda xuddi shunaqa aytgan. It was used to cut through the high mountains when canal method was not a practical alternative. Completely replace qilmadi. Просто uni ishlab turildi. Va u unaqa practical alternative bo'lmaganligi uchun o'sha canal method. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Have a good day.